I'm glad now to welcome to the meeting house again my son Ike Moody, that many of you know, and some of you are here specifically to hear and to see. Let's give him a warm hand. Welcome back to the meeting house, Ike.
Thanks, Dad. Dwight.
Dwight.
It's good to be back in Owensboro.
Is it?
Yeah, you know, I tell people my quick thing is, I was born in Pittsburgh.
You weren't born in Pittsburgh.
Born in Louisville, raised in Pittsburgh, and high school in Owensboro, and then ever after. And I'll go on to say that I grew up in Pittsburgh, but fell apart in Owensboro.
Is that right?
Before I really grew up. Yeah,
Wow.
It's where it started. It lasted longer than the 7 years I was here.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of things started here, but one of the things that did start here was your art, kind of. Where do you
Pretty much.
Where do you trace the genesis of that?
That's a good question. The first picture I drew, other than sort of Top Gun airplanes,
Yes.
when I was a child, was in 8th grade for my art teacher, Mr. Marks. He told us to draw our partner, our buddy or whatever, and he gave us a few pointers, and I did what he said. It was on a piece of paper like this.
And where were you, the 8th grade?
This is
It was in Pittsburgh.
North Allegheny Intermediate School,
Intermediate High School
in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he liked it. It looked like my partner, and that was the first picture I ever drew, really. And he put it in the varsity art show, which was a big deal because there were 4,000 people in the high school. And so you may recall, you might not, us going to the art show there, where it was on the very bottom of one, of 50, these things set up, and there was in a dark corner on the bottom, and I was like, look, there it is. And so, but I never thought, well, I could be an artist. And then we moved to Owensboro not a month or two later, on my 15th birthday, with tears running down my eyes.
Right.
Until we stopped at Old Hickory, and they gave me a sliced mutton with onions, and I stopped crying.
Yeah. It changed your attitude about it. Yeah.
It's okay, and I'm for real about that. That is exactly how I recall it. And then I didn't draw again for 4 years. Well, until I got arrested for something or another, and I was in the Davis County Jail, the old jail, and
Which is torn down now.
it's now gone along with the. Anyway, yes, the jail is gone, and I just remember looking around. There was an old guy in the corner. His name was Pops. A homeless guy who killed his best friend down by the river, and it was just shocking and overwhelmingly, insanely like what. And here he is going to be in prison for the rest of his life, and he seemed like pretty okay with it, and it just fascinated me. And you can't just stare at people in jail. So, I caught staring. What? Well, can I draw you? I didn't know what, and that's really how it started.
That's
right
how
there.
it started.
Yeah. In high school, I didn't draw. When you're moved to a new school, you just want to have friends and be cool and whatnot and fit in. So I got into sports and drinking and whatnot, but played sports was my extracurricular activity for the most part in high school. Played soccer with my buddy Adam out there, and that was really probably the best time I had in Owensboro. Was the goodest part.
Yeah.
And
so here we are tonight looking at two pieces of art. Tell us about each of these persons that you've featured in the art tonight. You started out drawing a murderer in the Davis County Jail when you were what?
Well, I was 18.
18 years old?
I was 18.
And now you've got two other people. Yeah. Let's start with the the one over here. Who
Bobby
is
Light.
this?
This is Bobby Light. If you ask this guy, hey, what's your name? He said, Bobby Light, Bobby Light. His name's Robert, and I'll reserve his last name and maintain his anonymity. But he is a public figure of sorts on the streets of Louisville, and a real character, you know. And I feel like the picture captured that. He's always making paper flowers for people.
He's got one in his right hand up there.
I took the photos, the reference photos that I used while making this painting. I took them several weeks ago at the Pride Festival, Pride Parade, which, you know, was this really great event, you know, all the way down Bardstown Road. Just a really diverse, family-friendly thing. Lots of churches, lots of people, lots of organizations out. And he had nailed down a corner. Now, he didn't pay for a venue spot, but he grabbed a couple construction cones and made him a spot. And I was there when one of the food trucks was trying to throw their trash away near him, and he was like, you know, like, you know, this is my spot, you know. And but he always keeps it classy, you know. He's very aware of families and kids. He doesn't ever drink or you know, act too crazy. I mean, he does, but you know, he didn't that day. So, and for the most part, when he's out working, which is what he's doing, you know, he's trying to make money. Now, he's not flying a sign or putting out a can, but he is interacting with people and exchanging pleasantries and talking.
So why was it this man that you drew on this canvas?
Well,
what is that, a 4x4,
this is
5x5?
4 by foot, so it's 4 foot by 4 foot, and that's a good question.
Why him?
Well, I've been drawing him since I moved there in 2010. He's been on the streets that whole time. I mean, I think he has a place to go here and there every once in a while, family maybe in the area, but for the most part, he's been on the streets, and I've known him as a person on the streets for all those years, and I've sketched him from the very first time I met him up until very recently. And you know, he knows I used him for this painting, and I actually gave him some money for it. And
has he seen this?
he hasn't actually seen this yet, because I haven't seen him. I see him frequently, but I haven't seen him in the past couple weeks, and that's normal. He's walking somewhere else. In this painting, you'll notice it has some words in gold, and those words are Salvator Ambulando.
Which is Latin for what?
There is salvation in walking, or walking solves everything, or the solution is walking, or walking is the solution. I'm not sure. There's also Salvator Ambulando, which is the Spanish, which is how I always pronounced it from a very when I first ran into it, and I ran into it, and this will lead into this painting. I came across that phrase Salvator Ambulando, which is the theme for all of the paintings I'm unveiling on this Tangle tour.
On the Tangle tour.
Yes, that's
You're
right.
going to do 5 or 6 or 7 paintings.
Many as I can do. I've got 5 going right now. These are the only 2 that are done. There's 3 more up and going. I tried to get this other one done for the Owensboro, but I'm not going to show an unfinished painting.
And so this phrase
is important to me because
the Latin phrase.
I found myself walking a lot in prison, and where I was at the time when I ran across the phrase doing a 98-month sentence in maximum security federal penitentiary at USP Lewisburg.
In the beautiful Susquehanna Valley of central Pennsylvania.
Yeah, nestled in the gently rolling hills of the Susquehanna Valley of central Pennsylvania.
You know,
just an hour away from the capital,
I
Harrisburg.
don't know whether you even know this story.
I do. I know the story. Yes.
You know, I had lost my wedding ring, been married.
On a visit to me.
Well, no. I lost it when one of you was born.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but when Jan and I stopped on the way to see you in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and stopped in a little goldsmith place up there.
Yeah.
And I saw a ring about like this, and I said to the man, I said, "Can you make me one of those?" And he said, "Yes."
That's cool.
So that's one of the reasons I remember.
Now, is that the only time you've lost your wedding ring, or has it happened a couple times?
No, it's just happened once.
Okay.
And you don't have to.
I
You
am
don't
having
have to
weird
do
memories.
Arts, build that into an art thing.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, I won't.
And so this is one man that's.
Yeah, Bobby Light as
Bobby
one
Light.
guy, and just for the people looking at the painting, I want to point out a couple things.
Okay.
If I could. So there's symbols that I use is in a lot of my artwork going back years and years, and those things just develop. Like a lick on a guitar becomes identified with a certain guitar player or musician, and their certain style. I have things that I do that would be part of what I do. It's my style, I guess. Some of those things I get to do, I'll put hearts in things, very simple stuff, very symbolic stuff.
There's
Some
a
of that
whole
is
series of hearts in this one. Yeah.
I generally put hearts in everything. I didn't put it in the Woodstock piece, and I'll get to that in a second, but because that whole picture is love.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a minute.
And with Bobby Light, I put some other symbols in there. That the water elements in paintings or in art, which I use a lot of water elements or things that look like liquid or water. If you're looking at art, an art therapist might tell you that water elements symbolize the subconscious. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it that way, it's kind of cool. Like I had been doing all these self-portraits with water bursting out of my head or whatever, and art therapist was like, well, that's generally what people think when they see water elements, it means this. And I thought, oh, that's cool. Now, that's the only person. I never got a second opinion, but it sounded right, and so I'm telling you that.
You went with it.
Yeah, I went with it.
You went with it.
And so he's got some turbulent water coming out of his pocket. And the turbulence, the subconscious stuff, the stuff that I struggle with, and we all, I'm assuming, struggle with, is just part of life. It's represented with the water elements, either ebbing or flowing, one way or the other. And then so you also have the brokenness. The hand you see is broken. Over here you see the foot is broken. That symbolizes, and I don't like to use the word trauma. It's such a popular phrase, word that's being used, but that's what I'll use for this. It represents experience, It doesn't have to be trauma, but in many cases it is trauma that marks a person, that presents them the challenge by which they grow, if they are lucky, right. If they're paying attention. If I'm paying attention, I can make lemon out of lemonade. I can make lemons out of lemonade. Well, if I could make lemons out of lemonade, I'd be doing something, right? That's what I can do.
Well,
you know what I meant.
Yeah, tell us about this other man here.
This is my soul brother, Louis Woodstock Safel. He is no longer with us. He passed as a result of the disease of addiction, June 16, 2016. I got the call while I was in a 30-day treatment program called Recovery on Chestnut in Louisville, Kentucky. I had just spent a week with him down in D.C., Silver Springs, Maryland, right outside of D.C., where he lived with his family. After he got out of prison around the same time I did, we were able to, like ships in the night, man, pass each other coming and going, as we were both really unable to get to any sort of stability after prison. He had spent a lot of time in prison, and I had spent 11 years. 18 to 31, I was in prison, minus 17 months at the age of 21. So it's a healthy chunk, and it impacted me and was a big formative process for me. At the same time, while most people in their 20s were learning how to balance a checkbook, I was doing something else. Yeah. I don't begrudge the opportunity to go to prison. I'm glad I don't have to go there tomorrow and start that experience tomorrow, but it was a huge challenge, and by the grace of the mystery, I was equal to it. And I think I was equal to it because of what Salvatore Ambulando means to me, which is one foot in front of the other, no matter what the situation. Don't ever give up. Try until you fry, I like to say.
Now, Woodstock, where did this name come from?
There's several stories. His origin story. My story is that he gave me two stories. So he says it's his middle name. The other story is that his mom met his dad at Woodstock, and that's how he got his thing. And the time frames match up, but I look at it with the people's eyebrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It may not be.
Well, yeah, it's like how he looked at me when I told him that I grew up, or that I spent 6 years in Hopewell, Indiana, when my dad was the preacher at Hopewell Baptist Church, and then I used to chase pigs with sticks of mud, and we had wagon trains and stuff like that. He was like, "That's not real." Hopewell, yeah, okay, good. Try something else. You know, like it didn't even sound real. I was like, it does sound rather idyllic. You know, with Aunt Mabel and Uncle Art. You know, I'm like, yeah, that happened. Yeah. So Woodstock was the person, and I need to say this, that the mystery put in my life at about 9 months into my federal prison sentence at USP Lewisburg, which claims to be the original big house built in 1932 by the Federal Works Project. Mm-hmm. It's a gorgeous building with sweeping arches. Are arches sweeping?
They can be.
Okay, that's what these were, and they were huge.
I've seen some arches that were sweeping.
Yeah, these were sweeping.
Sweeping.
So in the Italian Renaissance architecture style, this prison, it was gorgeous. They don't build them like they used to, you know. And so it's this orange brick against this blue sky, because that's all you could see for the wall. So you've got orange brick, and I'm like blue sky, and blue and orange is the complementary contrasting color. I'm like, it's really beautiful here.
Yeah.
You know, the light up in the Northeast, you got to try it. You know?
I think
maybe not in prison, but it's.
They've used it for several films. Not Shawshank, but some of them.
Yeah, well, Lewisburg, you know, had all the greats were at Lewisburg.
Yeah. It was a maximum security.
It still is.
Still is.
Well, it actually might be what's called a special management unit now, a SMU, which is a 23-hour lockdown program. So where you're, you know, like.
How long did you live with Woodstock?
I lived with him in a prison cell, a bunk bed, a bathroom with bunk beds for 4 years at Lewisburg, and then for another 2.5 at USP Big Sandy in Inez, Kentucky, when he then finished his federal sentence and had to go finish some state time because he had a bank robbery and a pharmacy.
Right.
Bank robbery's federal, pharmacy's state. So he goes and finishes his time. I remained at Big Sandy for another 2 years, and we exchanged letters throughout this time. He was at a prison in just, I don't know, from his letters it sounded gorgeous too. Yeah. So.
But this one behind me is from Lewisburg, right?
Yes, and the reason I know this is from Lewisburg is because I painted it while I was at Big Sandy. It was the first opportunity I really had to paint when I was in prison.
What had you used prior to that? What medium?
Well, I'm mostly a drawer, okay? And so I'm a professional drawer. I can say that, I feel. I've taught at the University of Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky University, you know, like I'm a professional drawer. But, you know, but I don't consider myself a professional painter. You know, I'm really just starting painting. And it's, when I first started drawing, I was going down to the art room at USP Lewisburg, and the corrections officer, Kurt Ilgen, who I remain in touch with to this day as a friend on Instagram, and he is such a great guy.
Is he still up there at the prison?
He is retired now, and his focus is now his family, and he's always posting about that. His son is evidently doing some really amazing stuff. And when I was with Kurt, when Kurt was the CO there, and I would talk to him, his son was just born, you know, and now he's talking about his son doing all these great things. Yeah. So I don't know, I might be getting old, but it was Kurt Ilgen that I was coming down to the rec room, to the art room every day for months to try and get a spot. Because that's what I was told by the old guys. Hey, if you just got to hang around, they'll give you a spot, not just be in a corner making something or doing whatever, being in the way. And then finally, they gave me a spot. Somebody either died or got out. And they gave me a spot, and which was a big deal because you don't have a lot of spots that are your own other than your cell. And so it was a really warm and great place. And he was cleaning out, this is a crazy story. He was cleaning out a closet of art supplies that were meant and were purchased for a program for G Block. Get this, G Block housed separately within that prison prisoners from the Marilito refugees from Cuba that Castro sent over that are represented in the movie Scarface. Those refugees. Does everybody remember that movie where there's that refugee camp under the overpass in Scarface? Well, those prisoners, the people that they didn't let in, were housed in different federal institutions across the country. And in G Block, Lewisburg, these guys had been there for so long, not interacting with anybody else, not actually convicted of a federal crime. This happened on that block, and I'll move on. He gave me a case of crayons, Prang, not Crayola, Prang, eight color boxes, a whole case of them, and so I started working with those. But I didn't know about they were coming from the Marilito guys, from the Marilito closet, until just recently when he told me that. Those Marilito guys, if this says something about the human spirit, there they are, 20 years after the Marilito stuff. They were criminals in their other country, but they came here and they were in prison. And I don't know if they still are to this day, but they were held under laws that don't apply to normal Americans without having committed a crime in America. Never getting out. You know, these people don't have lawyers and things like this. You know, language barrier is a huge issue, I'm sure. So they're accepted their fate. Maybe someday they'll get out. But to join each other for dinner, this happened. They shut down G Block eventually because the prisoners who'd been on that block for so long carved out the mortar between cement blocks in several of the cells adjoining each other so they could join each other for dinner periodically. Isn't that insane? Like, they didn't try and escape. They just wanted to break bread with their neighbor who they only knew by voice under the door and sliding notes and possibly getting to go on the roof for recreation every once in a while. These people, you know, that Salvatore Ambulando, that continue to live no matter what the situation, you know, it's like you accept your situation and you still try to do all the things that people try to do, which is connect with other people and feel loved and give love.
Ike, what are you going to do with these paintings?
I'm going to sell them. But even if somebody bought it tonight for my asking price, either one of them, I don't think the Woodstock painting's for sale. I would sell Bobby Light, but before I sell them, I'm going to have them photographed, make a book of these 7 pieces and the stories that go with them. And
your own walking story.
Yes, yeah.
Ike, thanks for being in the meeting house with me again. I look forward to that book. We've been talking about it for a long time.
Like so long, right? No, it's literally so long.
Yeah.
You know, we started some things a couple times.
We did.
Let's
let's get these this artwork done and start working on the text.
Yeah, I'm already on it.
All right. Thanks, Ike, for being in the meeting house.